Okay, so we're going to start in a while, right?
Yes, we will start in 3 more minutes. Let us wait for some more participants to join into the link.
Yes. Okay.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Modular Online Training Program conducted by CIMA Regional Training Center, Vietnam, CIMA RETRAC. My name is Dieu Lu, and I am a Program Officer at the International Development Department, and I will be the moderator for our today's session. Let me start by giving you a brief information about our Modular Online Training Program. So this program constitutes of 4 modules, and each module will cover 4 topics divided into 2 sections. For today's topic, we'll have module 4, soft skills, with the 2 topics, critical thinking skills for teachers and building self-management skills at work. Before we start, I would like to mention a little housekeeping rules. Our webinar is video recorded, so please watch and listen to the video. It will be less than 30 minutes for each video. If you have any questions during the video, please type them into the chat box. And after the video, we will have some time to discuss our questions with Dr. Anita, our trainer. About Dr. Anita, she obtained her doctorate degree in education planning and management in the Philippines. She had been in the field of education and engaged in the administrative functions back in the Philippines. She was the assistant to the academic vice president at Xavier University and dean of faculty and academic affairs at Finnmark Cargan de Oro College. She came back to CIMA RETRAC in 2018 as a senior education specialist and has been working as curriculum developer, instructional materials designer, trainer, researcher, and lecturer. She is very passionate to advance the leadership and management skills of the school leaders, managers, administrators, and teachers in Southeast Asia. Before we start with our session, may I ask you to turn on your camera so that we can take a photo shoot? Thank you very much. So please, our IT team, could you please help us to take the picture? So now for the first shot. For the second shot. And for the third shot. Thank you very much. And now, before we start, Dr. Anita Oplina will have some words with you. The floor is yours, Dr. Anita.
Okay, thank you so much, Chow, for your kind introduction. And good morning to all our participants. My warmest greetings for year 2022. And I'm so happy that you are still with us at this point. And as already said, this is a recorded video. And also, this is now our module 4, the first 2 topics of module 4. And yeah, I would like to let you know that our online training program will end in February. We have 2 topics for our last session for module 4. And so at this point, I really would like to welcome you all to our series of lectures. You know what? This is supposed to be ended last December 2021 because this program is webinar series 2021. However, we had really a very hard lockdown in Vietnam for 2 months. So we postponed our monthly session and it is extended up to February 2022. So today we have 2 topics, first 2 topics. Again, as already mentioned by Ms. Chow, we have critical thinking skills for teachers and building self-management skills at work. I hope you will enjoy and grab some insights, you know. And I also would like to remind you that this is a kind of a conversation among educators, among teachers. So feel free to be yourself. You can ask questions, you can share your ideas, your experience and thoughts, and you are all welcome. This is our floor, you know, so we can express what we would like to tell about the topics that we are going to explore in this first 2 sessions of module 4, soft skills module. Okay, so I think we are now going to start. We will watch the video. Hi everyone, my warmest greetings for year 2022 and welcome to the last module, module 4, the soft skills module. Today, we are going to explore the first 2 topics of module 4, topic 13 and topic 14. They are critical thinking skills for teachers and self-management skills at work, respectively. Let's start with topic 13. Critical thinking skills for teachers, which comprises 3 key points as follows. What is critical thinking for teachers? How are critical thinking skills developed? And how can the teachers promote critical thinking in their classroom lessons? What is critical thinking for teachers? For teachers, critical thinking is a term used to describe forms of learning, thought, and analysis that go beyond the memorization and recall of information and facts. In common usage, critical thinking is an umbrella term that may be applied to many different forms of learning acquisition or to a wide variety of thought processes. In its most basic expression, critical thinking occurs when students are analyzing, evaluating, interpreting, or synthesizing information and applying creative thought to form an argument, solve a problem, or reach a conclusion. Hence, strong teachers think critically. They practice the thinking art of analyzing and evaluating as they consider both day to day activities and long term teaching and learning goals. They evaluate what they have, determine what they will need, and decide how and when to assess student progress. Critical thinkers evaluate what they have. When presented with new or new to you teaching materials, they do an in depth review, compare overall content and resources with learning standards and objectives. Critical thinkers determine what they will need and what they will not. If the materials provided introduce standards not included in the state or district objectives for their grade level, they think critically before they delete them from the schedule. Perhaps these materials will provide background knowledge for a concept they will introduce and should be presented earlier than suggested by the text. On the other hand, important concepts may be absent from the materials provided. The critical thinkers will determine how to fill the void efficiently and economically. For example, asking other teachers from a variety of grade levels may lead to an important grade level or school-wide solution. Critical thinkers decide how and when to assess student progress. The purpose of student assessment is not only to assign grades. It is important to regularly check student progress to improve instruction. First, review the available quiz students' progress. Ask yourself what is challenging and what they pick up easily. Think critically about the standard tests. It may be necessary to reteach and reassess. It may also be prudent to simply review and move on from concepts with which students are already familiar. Keeping this in mind, let's move on to the second key point of my presentation. How are critical thinking skills developed? Developing critical thinking is often regarded as the cornerstone of education, but the reality is that many educational institutions are failing to develop critical thinking consistently and reliably in their students. There is a disconnect between the value of critical thinking and the degree to which it is supported by effective instruction. So, what does effective instruction look like? And how does it improve higher order thinking skills? Cognitive psychology provides us with some of the answers. 1. Context, the importance of background knowledge. Critical thinking is an essential part of a student's mental equipment. However, it cannot be detached from context. Teaching students generic thinking skills separate from the rest of their curriculum is meaningless and ineffective. As the American educationalist Daniel Willingham puts it, if you remind a student to look at an issue from multiple perspectives often enough, he will learn that he ought to do so. But if he doesn't know much about an issue, he can't think about it from multiple perspectives. Critical thinking, as well as scientific thinking and other domain-based thinking, is not a skill. There is not a set of critical thinking skills that can be acquired and applied regardless of context. The important question at hand here is, are some types of critical thinking more difficult to develop than others? The short answer is yes. Subject-specific critical thinking appears to be easier to develop than general critical thinking. Subject-specific critical thinking refers to that interventions that will improve a specific subject as opposed to general critical thinking. Instead of teaching general thinking skills, we ought to focus on subject-specific critical thinking skills that seek to broaden a student's individual subject knowledge and unlock the unique, intricate mysteries of each subject. For example, if a student of literature knows that Mary Shelley's mother died shortly after Mary was born, and that Shelley herself lost a number of children in infancy, that student's appreciation of Victor Frankenstein's obsession of creating life from death and the language used to describe it is more enhanced than approaching the text without this knowledge. A physics student investigating why two planes behave differently in flight might know how to think critically through the scientific method, but without solid knowledge of contingent factors such as outside air temperature and a bank of previous case studies to draw upon, the student will struggle to know which hypothesis to focus on and which variables to discount. Critical thinking cannot be applied to every situation or context. A requirement for using critical thinking is that the individual has background knowledge on the situation. We should teach subject-specific critical thinking as opposed to generic critical thinking. This will help enhance students' knowledge and develop a deeper understanding of the details within each topic. Background knowledge for each subject is essential and is the only way that critical thinking will be most effective. The key message here is that background knowledge is an important part of teaching critical thinking, and the extent to which you aim to develop critical thinking beyond the scope of the course content should be assessed dependent on what is achievable in the given context. 2. Be explicit to develop critical thinking skills. According to Ines 1989, cited by Algodone 2021, there are 4 main approaches to critical thinking instruction: general, infusion, immersion, and mixed approaches. General approach. The general approach explicitly teaches critical thinking as a separate course outside of a specific subject. Content can be used to structure examples and activities, but it is not related to subject-specific knowledge and tends to be about everyday events. Infusion approach. The infusion approach explicitly teaches both subject content and general critical thinking skills, where the critical thinking instruction is taught in the context of a specific subject. Immersion approach. Similarly, the immersion approach also teaches critical thinking within a specific subject, but it is taught implicitly as opposed to explicitly. This approach infers that critical thinking will be a consequence of interacting with and learning about the subject matter. Mixed approach. Lastly, the mixed approach is an amalgamation of the above 3 approaches, where critical thinking is taught as a general subject alongside either the infusion or immersion approach in the context of a specific subject. In terms of which are the best instructional approaches to increase critical thinking, the mixed approach, a combination of general, infusion, and immersion, where critical thinking was taught explicitly as a separate strand and within a specific subject, was the most effective, whereas the implicit immersion approach was the least effective. And 3. Be strategic to teach critical thinking skills. The knowledge that critical thinking needs to be deliberately and explicitly built into courses is integral to developing critical thinking. However,
without the more granular details of exactly what teaching strategies sit beneath this, it will only get us so far. Karfis, author of Critical Thinking, Theory, Research, Practice, and Possibilities, offers examples of assignments or approaches that develop these critical thinking skills that span the disciplines. You might adapt her examples in her own classroom to facilitate the development of critical thinking skills. They are as follows. Use imaginary team. Engineering. Real-world problems make up the backbone of engineering classes and develop critical thinking skills. Karfis suggests using guided design, which slows down the decision process by having students work through a series of steps in teams, pausing after each step to compare the results with those of an imaginary team working on the same problem. Note that the imaginary team's answers are not necessarily correct. Students must constantly engage with the steps they are working through and must reflect on whether their approach was correct and figure out which approach their own or the imaginary team's was correct and how to correct the other approach. Use metacognitive skills, mathematics. Students should move away from trying to plug in numbers to arrive at answer and instead focus on the metacognitive skills necessary for approaching a problem. Group work can be helpful since students have the opportunity to work through a problem together and discuss difficulties. The teacher does not tell students how to solve the problem, but asks questions that help the students approach and solve the problem on their own. This doesn't mean that the instructor waits until the students have the answer. Instead, the instructor interacts with the groups, asking questions when a group is stuck or the approach is not clear. Ask questions like, what exactly are you doing? Can you describe it precisely? Why are you doing it? How does it fit into the solution? How does it help you? What will you do with the outcome when you obtain it? While this teaching method might seem time-intensive, students gain a deeper understanding of the work they are doing than if they simply copy the examples the instructor puts on the board. Students are learning the process of thinking through problems as an expert would approach a problem and practicing higher order thinking skills. Use divergent and critical thinking. Psychology. In psychology, teaching students to think critically requires getting students to challenge their personal theories and consider all the data. Students practice divergent and critical thinking by designing an intelligence test and administering it to 10 people. The class then discusses the results, the problem that came up during testing or analysis, and ethical issues. The resulting discussion reveals a skepticism about such tests. While students may have previously accepted intelligence tests at face value. When used on the first day of class or early in the semester, students have an experiential foundation they can use the rest of the semester. When preparing your own class, think about how your students are engaging with information and whether they are learning the critical thinking skills that will support their learning in future courses. With a little planning, your class can help students master, not just memorize knowledge. Thus, remember that context is king. Always be explicit and always be strategic when developing critical thinking skills. This brings us to the last key point of my presentation. How can the teachers promote critical thinking in their classroom lessons? Every teacher's goal is for students to use critical thinking in the work they do. Students who can think critically grow into lifelong problem solvers. Critical thinking with students means that they can take information and analyze it, draw conclusions, form and defend opinions with data to back it up, reflect on their work, and approach problems in a systematic way. Questions. Where does that begin in the classroom? And how do teachers implement critical thinking in the lessons they do with students? Here are a few suggestions. 1. Make time for thinking. During a discussion on new subject material or an unfamiliar test question, encourage your students to take upwards of a minute or two to consider their responses. They can reflect silently or use paper to think through the issues. While they won't have the luxury of time come test time, taking the time to critically reflect before answering allows students to better grasp what they know and why. The result is stronger answers and a more prepared student. 2. Use question formulation technique. Instead of getting students to answer questions, the question formulation technique helps students to ask the questions themselves. Not any old question, but better questions that inspire them to participate more effectively in the decisions that affect them. Students who learn to ask their own questions become more curious, take ownership of their learning, and demonstrate greater comprehension of challenging content. The basic steps are as follows. The teacher uses a piece of content, example, a video, an equation, an article, to both kickstart and focus student questions. Students make a list of questions, either in groups or individually. They don't stop to discuss, judge, or answer the questions, and they have to write down every question exactly as it is stated. And they then work with the questions they have produced to improve them by categorizing their questions as closed or open-ended and prioritizing the most important ones. Have them select a handful of questions that will help them with their research, guide their work, or help them solve a problem depending on the lesson at hand. 3. Apply inquiry-based learning. Using the questions formulated in the above technique as a launching pad, have students complete an inquiry-based learning project. Of course, to really dive into inquiry-based learning, they would need a whole new article. But with the work half done, thanks to the question formulation technique, they can complete the thought. Once your students have their questions ready to go, set them on the path of answering it by researching credible sources. Have them present what they have learned in a presentation format and ask them to defend their findings to the class. After all, critical thinking is nothing without the ability to communicate your conclusions in an effective argument. This step is crucial in opening up critical thinking as a skill that not only benefits individual students but the entire class or community to which they contribute. 4. Encourage students to think for themselves. In some situations, it might seem easier to just provide the student with the answers, but these solutions will not promote critical thinking. Lessons should naturally provide students the opportunity to find their own answers and share them with others. Give students the ability to make their own choices in their learning, from project deliverables to writing prompts. 5. Make connections. There are many opportunities to connect students' learning to real-life experiences. They could take place by connecting students to project topics that are of interest to them. Find topics in the real world that might have an impact on students or their families. Additionally, connect students to experts in the field. There are a multitude of resources to make classroom connections to experts such as scientists, museums, zoos, and field reporters. These connections can be done through programs like Google Meet, Skype, Zoom, among others. And six, provide opportunities for collaborative work. Collaborative work is how our world functions. Providing students with the opportunity to work together promotes critical thinking and a deeper understanding of the content they are learning. Collaborative work can take on the role of small in-class activities or larger project-based learning approaches. Examples of collaborative activities could be a think, pair, share discussion, a fishbowl debate, or a group problem solving project. Consider using class time for group work and at home time for researching, watching a class video, and reading content. For larger projects, use class time as checkpoints and for conferencing with students. Those are some ways to promote critical thinking skills in your classroom lessons. My presentation on critical thinking skills for teachers just ended its 3 key points. The concept of critical thinking for teachers, ways to develop critical thinking skills, and the ways to promote critical thinking skills in classroom lessons. I hope you were able to glean a few ideas that will help you advance your critical thinking skills and implement critical thinking skills in your classrooms. I would like to wrap my presentation off with a few thoughts. Critical thinking skills lie at the heart of education. Without them, the learning process is little more than memorization and no application to ourselves, to our world, and to our reality. Developing critical thinking skill is crucial. For students, critical thinking skills mean the difference between a nominal grasp of content and a deeper understanding of what they know and why that information is important. That deeper understanding translates into higher grades, a better grasp of complex ideas, better decision making, not manipulated with advertisers and fake news, reinforce their value, and a critical awareness with lifelong application beyond school. However, teachers should understand the basic idea and concepts behind critical thinking and the critical thinking approaches, the modes of learning, cognition, and analysis that extend beyond the memory and recall of facts and information. Only then can teachers be able to implement critical thinking effectively and efficiently in their classrooms. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you very much. And that's the end of our first video for the first topic. If you have any questions, please unmute yourself for some discussion with Dr. Anita, or you can type them in the chat box. Thank you.
Okay, well, I guess we already have one question, Miss Chow.
Yes, we have
Yeah.
one question about the question formulation technique.
Okay, this is from I. I'm sorry if I won't pronounce well your name. but
Ikai,
this is
Ikai from Myanmar. Yes.
Ikai
Hi,
from
hi.
Kai,
Myanmar.
Myanmar. Okay, thank you
Yes.
so much for your question. Welcome to our session today.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay, so the question here is, may I know what is question formulation technique? Okay.
Yes.
Now, question formulation technique is a technique that allows students to dig deeper of the content or the issue at hand. Okay, you are
Okay.
allowing students to think further. Now, but then the formulation, what is that? Question formulation technique requires a question focus. Like, for
Concept.
example, yeah, like for example, you have the concept or you have an
Yeah.
article, or maybe a statement, or maybe a video. You show a video, or maybe
Yeah.
a poster. A
Yeah.
poster. It could be images, it could also be printed copies, like there is a news, current issue, whatever
Yeah.
is that is related to your topic. I mean, that's the discussion of the day, of course, according to your syllabus, the planned lesson. And you can use a question formulation technique. That technique will allow students, okay, this is now the concept, this is the issue, for example. And
Yeah.
then you give students time to formulate their own questions. They are going to formulate their own questions to think. What are they going to think about? The different dimensions of the issue you can use. Maybe you can start with a question like what, how, when, why. The question techniques that we use, and then dig deeper.
Mhm.
Ask them questions that require analysis, that require interpretation, that require synthesis after analyzing. Okay, so this is a free flow questions. They can ask questions, anything that come to mind.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes. And then
Thank
after
you.
that, they are going to categorize their questions. They group their questions. Usually this is done in group, a group of 2 or 3 students, so that they can share, they can collaborate. And then they are going to categorize their questions. So maybe this question is about the um, elements, or the elements of the concept, for example. This question is about the causes. This question is about the results, if that done.
Yeah.
This questions are about the effect, so they can categorize from the, how do I describe it, from the basic, questions,
Easy
maybe
to, yes.
to the
Easy to
difficult,
high level.
to the
Yes.
high level.
Yes.
And then after categorizing, then they're going to again look at this group of questions and say, what is the relevant, what are the relevant questions. Maybe they can, I would say, polish the questions later, and so they will do it themselves. But the
Yeah.
point is that these questions come from them, not from the teacher.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
And
Thank you.
with that in mind, then the students will have the ownership of these questions to explore, because these are questions that they are interested to look into.
Yes.
Okay, so that is now a question formulation technique. But you can have your own rules, on how to go about it. But this is the general idea of how does a question formulation technique look like. Okay, I hope I have
Okay.
given you my thoughts. But then you can add on, or can ask
Yes.
question further.
Yes. Thank you, Madam, for your interesting and detailed answers. Thank you very much. Yes.
Welcome.
Yeah. Yes, if you have any more questions, please type them in the chat box or unmute yourself to ask Dr. Anita. Yes, look like we have a questions from Mr. Chan Pakde. Yes.
Okay, welcome, Mr. Chan. Pakde, I really appreciate your, constant attendance with, you're really come and attend our session. Okay, and then you have here, your question is about how could we apply critical thinking in the field of science where every problem requires scientific solution? For example, experiment. It's a very interesting question. Okay, now, I guess when we speak of science, in the field of science, really lots of critical thinking will be happening in that particular field, because it's there that we have, especially in the experiment process, right? So that in the experiment, we have the raw material, and the raw material will be going into some processing, and that we are expecting some results at the end. Now, in the process, we can ask questions, several questions, right? We can ask the question like, how does this happen? And why is this happening? So science requires, experiment in particular, requires steps. And throughout the step, we can monitor the critical thinking process of the students. Because out from the whole, out from the raw material, out of, I would say the ingredients or whatever that experiment is, you're doing a process, a step-to-step process. And so in there, we can guide students some, I guess, like prompt questions, as well as we can also ask students a kind of question formulation technique that would depend on how you plan that lesson, that experiment. But definitely, experiment requires critical thinking. I am interested now on the process because students learn in the process so much, and they are, I would say, wonder of the result, whether they are anticipating the result. And then there in the result, you're going to synthesize on, see. So there is analysis in the process. But of course, you have the recall, the remembering. I would like to tell that the low thinking skills, like remembering, comprehension, and all, are really very, very important in the process. But then we don't stop there, of course, especially in the science field. The experiment, we move further and we go to higher thinking skills, higher order thinking skills. And so we have here, I would say, in the experiment, analysis. And then after that, students are going to synthesize. To analyze is to break down, to synthesize, to put together the result of the experiment. And that is critical thinking. And then after that, they make some evaluation. And then they create something, they make something. All these are form of critical thinking. And we are here developing really and truly critical thinking skills of the students. Okay, I hope I have I have shared my thoughts about your question, Mr. Chan. However, you can say something as well. I know you're in the field, maybe, and so you can speak out your experience, and we are interested to listen and to hear from you. Okay, welcome, Mr. Chan. Now we have here from Nathalie Vargas from Baroy. Okay, good day, Dr. Anita. And okay, yeah, good day too. Now, if not mistaken, we consider higher order thinking skills in creating or implementing or creating or in formulating our questions for our learners, for the teachers. Is there a need for us to use rubrics in evaluating the answers of our learners? Thank you. Okay. I see here. It depends on the context. Like if you are going to use formulating question technique, for students to be able to explore and to dig deeper the concept or the issue. Because this is a free flow activity. I I guess that point, unless maybe you have gone through different series, of or experiences of doing it, but there is no rubrics here for me. If you are just simply asking asking students to share their questions and to give out their best, I guess acknowledging them is better. But if you really would like them to really be engaged further, you can do rubrics. But if you will create rubrics for that, that rubric must be designed by the teacher and the students. So the rubric must be agreed upon. I guess the rubric would encourage them to share more. Okay, that's for the questions. If you ask students to formulate their own questions, you can do that. But for teachers, for example, because I guess if I am not mistaken, you also mentioned here that formulating question technique can also be done for teachers are doing that. I guess, yeah, for the teachers. Okay. It depends now whether you have your own rubric when you formulate the HOT. No, yeah, that reminds me. I'm sorry, that reminds me. You can do your own rubric if you are formulating your questions using higher order thinking skills to check whether you have covered the different higher order thinking skills. Like you have covered analysis, synthesis, evaluation or creativity, whatever will that be. And then rubric can help you whether you have embraced all the higher order thinking skills. See? Because our question may only be focusing on analysis, but we don't have questions on synthesis. We don't have questions on creativity, So I guess to guide us in formulating our higher order thinking skills, then we need the rubrics to check, and to assign questions like how many items would I allocate for analysis? How many items would I allocate for synthesis? Something like that. Okay. Is there a need for us to use rubrics in evaluating the answers of our learners? Yes, I would say yes. If the question, like open-ended questions using higher order thinking skills, in fairness, to give justice to the answer of the students, we need some standards. And the standards would be set through the rubrics. Okay, I hope I have answered your question, Nathalie. Another one is, then you can chat or you can get the floor if you would like to say something more. Let's say another one is from Paul Badon. Thank you for this one. Good morning, ma'am. May I ask, how do we teach critical thinking using the self-learning modules? Any suggestions? Okay, very good question. Self-learning modules. I guess with the self-learning modules, you also have your assessment. You have some questions to check whether students understand the module or not. So with that, then you can ask questions students using higher order thinking skills, you know, in the self-learning modules. It depends now on the topic that you are in and you're having, but you can always you can incorporate higher order thinking skills. You can ask questions that imply analysis, ask questions to synthesize, to analyze, to synthesize, to create, and to evaluate. These are questions that allow students to go further than just answering the facts. This would open their mind to multiple perspectives of the lesson at hand. Mhm. Okay. I hope I've given you my thoughts, Paul. This is from Chan. Chan is telling us that you're working in a TVET school, but my expertise is in English language. Okay, acknowledge that. But I'm pretty sure also that in English language, you are using critical thinking skills, right? So that your students will be able to be competent and fluent in English. And you can incorporate, of course, critical thinking skills in different ways and in many ways. Now we have from Bernarda Liano, engaging students towards critical thinking for 40 plus students in a class is quite difficult. I totally agree with you. Yeah, because critical thinking skills require you to really let the student, present or let the student know and being able to express, being able to articulate. But you can do that, 40 plus students. I guess you can do it by group. Okay. And I wonder also the time limit that you have. But you can do some assignments, and then you can just have your students present in the class the output. It depends on how you design your lesson. For 40 students, you can use differentiation in what is that? Differentiated instruction. So you can group your students according to their level of competency, according to their interests and their learning style, and you can give them the topic, or the concept that is also relevant to the lesson at hand. And then you will assign the group, So you have the group members and you have the leader. And I wonder how you have your groups, but assigning them a topic, a concept to be able to explore, and develop their critical thinking skill is very interesting. And then they come to class and present, and then they, how far have they gone through, how far have they developed their critical thinking skills, in process. So that you will be able to know that in the beginning of the semester, beginning of the class, students are not that participative, but eventually students are engaging, and thinking. And you will just be, surprised on how they would be able to capture the concept and be able to express their ideas in different perspectives. The point in the critical thinking is that we're allowing students to explore. We don't limit our students here. to explore ideas and to expand their understanding, and they are able to articulate, to express what is critical thinking after all if the student cannot express and cannot communicate. See? But students can communicate in different ways depending on the learning styles of the students and depending on the interest. Students can communicate not only in printed copies, but they can communicate through posters. They can communicate through role play. They can communicate through maybe conference, they engage, having conference, or they can present their critical thinking through images, and they're going to explain something, to say something. Everything is possible. You have your big classes or small classes, depending on how you plan. It is all depending on how the teacher would really plan and give much time in the preparation so that the class will be engaging and learning will be maximized. So the question is, how many students in a class where we can truly apply critical thinking? I don't think I will give the number of how many students in the class. Whether you have few students, average students, or many students, you can apply critical thinking. That will depend on how you plan it. It may be challenging for big number of students, but it can happen. I remember there is a study in China, for example, a very good study. And then the class is more than 50. It's about 60 students in one class. It's really a big class. But the students behave in a manner that they really are focusing on the lesson. And it's really the planning of the teacher. I was amazed of how the teacher, conducted the lesson. That critical thinking, the teacher was integrating, incorporating critical thinking skills in the specific subject. But the students are, engaging. Students are doing their part, and students are learning. So I encourage you all that teaching critical thinking does not depend on the number of the students. That would depend on how the teacher plans the lesson. Okay, so thank you so much to Nathalie, Paul. Now we have here another one. Critical thinking. This is from Mo Sabal from Myanmar. Okay. Critical thinking is skill. Why? I think so. It is true skill. Please explain. Or it is good idea. Yeah. I really validate your question because in one of my slides, I mentioned that critical thinking is not a skill. I mentioned that one when I was referring to specific subject critical thinking. I would say, firstly, critical thinking when referring to a specific subject, critical thinking is not a skill. Why do I say that? Because there is no set of critical thinking skills that a student can pull out and use it and apply it in analyzing, for example, an engineering problem or concept. there is no particular set of critical thinking skills that student would just grab and use this. Instead, when we are teaching a specific subject in the class, the student needs a background knowledge, the information. Unless the student has a very good background knowledge, then the student can see the concept in multiple perspectives and analyze the concept in multiple perspectives. So that is now, when I said critical thinking is not a skill. It is acquired. It is depending on the context. Because if I don't know, for example, this concept, I have no idea about this, how can I use my critical thinking if I don't have the knowledge? If, for example, I am given a problem, I'm doing a research on inclusive, equitable, quality education. But if I have to gain knowledge, I have to understand it in multiple perspectives. I need to read literature. I need to read studies that will supply me information. So I would be able to look at it and analyze and integrate and synthesize and detach in whatever I will do because I have the knowledge. That's critical thinking now. So back to the engineering course. If I don't have the knowledge of this concept, I cannot use critical thinking. I have no idea. That's why context is important in teaching subject, in teaching critical thinking skills to students. However, when you mean a critical thinking in a general critical thinking, for example, like the day-to-day, the events that happen, the common knowledge that we have, I can use critical thinking because I have the idea. I understand what's happening. So I have already a kind of critical thinking skills at hand because this is not just happening now. It happens several times. So I can critique, I can look at it in different perspectives. Okay. So then, critical thinking happening. Okay, so to give you really my concept of critical thinking skills is that it depends on the situation where you use your critical thinking skills. It is a skill when it is repeatedly and you have the knowledge and you have the background of that. But if you don't have the background, you don't have the knowledge, you cannot use critical thinking. Never. So when we ask students to use their critical thinking skills, see to it the students understand and students have the knowledge, have the background on the concept. Okay. I hope I have shared with you my thoughts. Moy? Yes.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I am Wilson Ation.
Yes. Yeah, good morning. Welcome. I miss you.
I'm amenable of your idea pertaining to the regarding your statement a while ago that providing opportunities for students and collaborative effort or work is very important also. But today, because of this pandemic, I noticed that there is lacking opportunity in much more in preparing, for example, FS or feasibility study or even research. I noticed that there was one time a certain client requested us to provide the exact tons of waste materials in a certain company. and it's very
Mhm.
difficult for us to provide. So if we are going to give a complete context or scenario to the students, even right now in our side as teachers, we cannot provide because of the pandemic and because
Mhm.
of lacking also of the files or records in a certain community.
Mhm.
Some records we can get that from the internet, but there are some records right now wherein needed in a certain entity wherein we cannot do so. So how can we have a concrete basis for the students in order that this critical thinking will be used?
Yeah, that's really very, very challenging, you know. I would say, you know, very challenging situation. You know, what I'm trying to see here is that due to our current situation, we cannot provide the best, you know, like such that information as you mentioned to our students, which is really very, very important. So the question is, what should we do, right?
Yeah.
Um, to be able to provide the information that's necessary for I would say in terms of critical thinking skills. So it will be, you know, like look at it in different perspectives, you know, and so on. Now, I wonder if you also have like some uh, networking maybe or connections to uh, to people who have that data, that information that you need. Mm,
Uh, I we tried, but we did not able to provide. So we we asked another agency to
mhm,
provide us. So that's one time. That is one way also that we got, but it's very difficult for us to provide us alone.
mm. Yeah, yeah.
Sirs will be the one to provide. So you need another. It's quite good if they will help us. There are some agencies wherein they will not help us because they're also after of the secrecy of their data.
That's really, that's
I
really,
believe no, there are so many agencies we have, even institutions wherein
yeah.
there are a lot of data that we can get, but they are hesitant to give us the data. Mm,
Mhm, mhm,
ano.
mhm. Oh, this is really the limitation that we have now. Um, but in that situation, do you think the students really, I would say, even if like, okay, this is they need the information, but this is the actual thing, right? Because they are doing a project, right? Am I correct?
Yeah,
They're
we
doing a
were doing
project,
a project about waste
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 management.
waste management in
Mm,
a certain
mm,
community.
mm. Mhm. I wonder if you can connect to the community that the students are engaged with. Like, for example, I wonder if there is that head of the community where you can contact and students can, that you would also be able to help the students get the data you need. Uh,
So that
I
is then we can contact the head.
Yeah, because uh, I understand that you really need the concrete data, the concrete information for that purpose, right? Um, so this is now our task to kind of make connections.
Mm.
In that case, connect to parents, connect to the community, and then they may be able to give us what we need. Uh, because after all, this project they will also be benefited from the project. And if they understand the purpose of the project, I guess they are also cooperative to give that information the students need.
Okay, thank you.
So this point really, because we are limited to go out and most of the time we are working online, we just
Mm.
need some connections, network, and we can ask, we can use our students, we can ask students whom they know, and teachers then can communicate and contact these people. I guess that's
Yeah.
the only thing that I can think of at this point in time, especially that's quite contextual. The project is contextual, and it will be done that way. If we could hardly find other agencies out there, because they are not really that, though we need the agencies network and their data, but if they are also hesitant to give us, then we will find our own way, so long as we will be able to get the information we need, so that our project will be successful, and students in one way or another can use their own initiative as well, and their creativity and innovation to go through the process, and in that way they will be using their critical thinking skills.
Yeah.
Okay, I hope I have shared with
Thank
you
you.
my thoughts. I really miss you. Okay, so we have from Bernardaliano. Okay, thank you, Prof. Anita. I also agree that we can use rubrics. Okay, yeah, thank you for that. And we have from I. What are the fact of or rationale for the critical thinking? I think what you are trying to tell me here is what is the importance of critical thinking. Now, basically, I would like to start in telling you that critical thinking is one of the 4 C's of the 21st century skills. Okay, so we have like critical thinking, creativity. What is that? 4 C's: critical thinking, communication, creativity, and what's the other C? So this is critical thinking is one. So now, what is the rationale for the critical thinking? Critical thinking is part of life, I would say. Critical thinking is important in decision making, in solving problem. Critical thinking is important in putting myself in proper place, in living a good life, or the otherwise. Critical thinking is within the life journey. Critical thinking is really very important because the robot, artificial intelligence, cannot do it. Only human can do it. So there is no reason for us not to be engaged in critical thinking, and for teachers to develop our critical thinking. And we pass on this critical thinking to our students. So critical thinking is looking at different perspectives and different angles of the concept, and see what is good and what is bad, and improve the bad and enhance the good. And something like that. So I would say, really, to sum it up, critical thinking is life, it's part of life. And therefore, it is really very, very important at work and in life. Okay? Now, okay. Thank you for this one, Bernardo Liano. Yes, Prof, I agree that critical thinking is not a skill if there is no context or previous knowledge of the subject Definitely, yes. It's not. You cannot never apply critical thinking without knowledge. The proof, which facts depends on competence of critical thinking. Oh, which facts depend on competence of critical thinking? Now, I would say critical thinking starts from the trivial things that we do, the routinary things that we do. Like when we wake up in the morning, for example, when we are awake in the morning, we are going to decide whether to stand up or to stay on bed. And then we cook and we decide which to cook for our breakfast, or sometimes automatic, sometimes it needs critical thinking. And then what dress to wear to go to school, we have to simple critical thinking, but still thinking. We have to make decision making. I would say decision making entails critical thinking, maybe little critical thinking that depends on the fact. Maybe this issue needs really higher order thinking skills, but this issue needs only lower order thinking skills, but it's still critical thinking. That is why critical thinking must start from kindergarten. We don't teach critical thinking only in high school, students. Critical thinking starts even in the kindergarten and lower level of schools. But what kind of critical thinking do we use? Simple critical thinking. Up to bring to higher critical thinking. So speaking of facts, now it says depends on competence of critical thinking. Maybe what you are referring here is the higher facts, higher issues, higher concepts that you are talking here. Okay, now I would like to share with you that our competence of critical thinking is, I would say, developing. Our critical thinking starts from our lower grade, from our youth, when we were young, and it is developing. Now, the point is which facts depends on competence of critical thinking. That will be, I would say, facts that require very important background of knowledge, facts that are maybe sensitive, facts that are, I would say, facts that are a bit complex, I would say. Complex facts, like it needs more details. It is a challenging one, and it needs really higher critical thinking skills. Like, for example, when you make decision making, major decision making. What are major decision making? For example, quitting a job is a major decision making. I stop my work, or transfer of residence, or that's our daily, that's about life thing. Now, about school, maybe a specific subject, specific course, higher subjects, like particular discipline, like major subjects, or whatever. It depends. You know your lesson well, and you know which facts are important there, are relevant are basic to be able to increase critical thinking or use critical thinking and benefit from critical thinking as well. Okay. I hope I have answered your question, I. But you can say something. Mhm. Okay. Chow, do we have questions at hand?
I believe that our participants have asked all the questions that they have for this topic.
Okay,
Yes.
so thank you so much for your participation. And I hope that you have gleaned some insights from this presentation.
Yes, thank
Critical
you very
thinking
much,
skills for
Dr.
teachers.
Anita. Yes.
Thank you.
and,
And really, I'm so happy that you are with us today.
Yes, we have so many interesting questions and discussion with Dr. Anita. And before we continue with our second video on the second topic, we will have a short break. So we will be back at 10:30 a.m. Thank you very much, and we will see you then.
Thank you so much and see you.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to our modular online training program. For our next topic, we will have building self-management skills at work. And now may I share the recorded video for the topic for you. Thank you very much.
Welcome back. Let us explore the second topic of Module 4, Topic 14, Building Self-Management Skills at Work. We will go through the following 3 key points. What is self-management skill at work? What are the self-management skills at work and how to develop them? And how can the teachers enhance self-management skills at work? What is self-management skill at work? Self-management skills are those abilities that allow an employee to feel more productive when doing daily routine tasks, regardless of the working environment. Self-management skill at work is the ability to get things done without being prompted, reminded, or managed. Self-management skill is an essential tool in the workplace because it helps us contribute to our better work environment for ourselves and for our co-workers. Self-management skills are key to getting ahead in the workplace. In this competitive job market, employers do not have the time or resources to carry employees who cannot keep on top of their own time and complete their work without being reminded. Employees who require micromanaging are a time and resource drain. Employees with can-do attitudes who quickly understand which tasks need carrying out first, think about and improve working processes, and make the lives of their clients and co-workers easier will stand out to managers. Well, just as important, self-management skills are crucial but overlooked as a necessary set of skills on the job. Being able to manage oneself at work is critical and often an indicator of your ability to manage others. This moves us to discuss the second key point of my presentation. What are the self-management skills at work and how to develop them? According to youthemployment.org, there are 3 key elements of self-management skills at work. They are initiative, organization, and accountability. Initiative. Initiative is being able to work without always being told what to do. You can show initiative by thinking for yourself and taking action when needed. Initiative means using your head and having the drive to achieve. Initiative requires self-belief because you need resilience and motivation to go out of your way to solve problems or do things without being reminded or asked. Why is initiative important at work? When you use your initiative, you do things without being asked, solve problems that others may not have noticed needed solving, and go out of your way to continue learning and growing. You do extra research if required, ask questions, and seek help if you need. It also means doing things for others. Going out of your way to help people shows that you're willing to go above and beyond, which will impress employers. Using your initiative makes you a desirable candidate for jobs and opportunities as you are showing you can think for yourself, as well as proving that you will continue to develop and grow in your role. It allows you to get ahead of the competition and ensure you're up to date with what's going on in your career sector. How to develop initiative skills. Develop a career plan. People who have a long-term career plans are more likely to take initiative. Volunteer. Giving your time to a good cause makes you stand out and can help you to develop a range of skills. volunteering for charity events, and come up with great ideas to make them even more successful, whether it's creating eye-catching display stands at the school fair or offering your unique skills or services, such as designing flyers and leaflets if you have a good eye for design, and others. Join professional training, join webinars, which are totally free. Doing the training shows you are already taking the initiative to build your professional and life skills. And go the extra mile to do things. If you have been assigned a task or activity and it is not going well, think about what extra steps you could take to make it better. Is there someone you could talk to? An extra action you could take? A new way you could look at a problem? Organization. Organization means you can plan your time and the things you have to do. You know what is most important, what should be done first, and what will take the longest. It's also about being prepared and having the things you need when you need them. So, if you know you need certain tools or information to complete a task, you make sure you have them before you begin. Strong organizational skills are demonstrated by planning your time and your workload effectively. Meeting deadlines will show potential employers that you are good at organization, which is vital to do well in your career. Being organized shows how much you care about your job. Arriving every day on time and remembering everything you need are important, as well as ensuring you don't forget your lunch or turn up late to an important meeting. Organization will make you look more professional and help you get your job done more effectively. Why is organization important at work? From managing your time to prioritizing tasks and even having a tidy desk, being organized will help you improve your employability and your life. Organized persons will know what they need to do and when, and make lists, have a calendar or diary, and are able to manage themselves in all areas of life and work. How to develop organizational skills? Create a morning routine. Set a morning routine to make sure you are ready to the day ahead. When you walk into the office in the morning, spend your first 15 minutes looking at what you need to do that day. Create a to-do list. Write down everything you have to do today. By writing down daily tasks, you do not have to stress about remembering to do them. If possible, make a to-do list for next day and refer to it before you go to sleep. By doing so, you will wake up with an action plan in mind. Use a planner. Use an online or paper tool that will help you manage your appointments, travel, and other important information. A planner can be immensely helpful in getting your thoughts together. Set yourself deadlines for projects. Plan how you will achieve your goal. When do certain tasks need to be done and in what order? And establish a filing system. Most of your files are probably going to be digital, but you still need to know where everything you need is stored. You need to make sure all your files are in its proper place. You should also have a master document of all your files and the location of those files. Accountability. Accountability and responsibility are similar, but they don't mean the same thing. A manager at work could give you responsibility for a task, but you could still look for someone else to blame if it goes wrong. Or you could decide not to put the efforts in because you don't really care about the results. But accountability is not about the task being successful or not. It's about your attitude to the task. If you say to yourself that you are accountable, It means that you take ownership of the responsibilities that come your way. You take pride in your work and want to do it well to get the best results possible. You can be just proud of the task success and you accept responsibility if it goes wrong. If a task you are responsible for doesn't go well, you will make it your personal mission to look for ways to improve next time or find a better way of completing the task using your problem solving skills. This is accountability. Why is accountability important at work? Everyone loves to see you have a positive attitude and can be relied on to put the effort in when something needs to be done. If you're in a sports team or other people in your team know they can rely on you to give it your all. If you're working on a group project, going the extra mile to contribute and doing it because you care, not just because you have to, means the project is more likely to go well and people will want to work with you in the future. At work, employers want to know that you will take the work they give you seriously and treat it as a chance to show you can be trusted with more important work in the future. Taking responsibility for yourself is a great way to get invited to work on really exciting projects as you build experience over time. How to develop accountability skills? On the task. When you are given a task by anyone, for example, a master teacher, a subject teacher, guidance counselor, among others, don't think of it as a task someone gave you. Say to yourself, this is my task. The passion I put into this task reflects on me as a person, and I am ready to take pride in what I do. Provide specific deadlines. Be clear as to when a task or deliverable is due, and maybe set up notifications to remind you when deadlines are looming. Spot opportunities and potential improvements. Consider the following. What would our stakeholders, students, and community want us to improve? What could they be doing better if we could help them? How can we improve quality? Who else could we help by using our core competencies? And what small problems do we have that could grow into bigger ones? And hold yourself accountable for the work you do and add extra passion to your working day. It's not just a job for money, it's work you care about and want you to do your best in. This takes us to the last key point of my presentation. How can the teachers enhance self-management skills at work? According to Ian Monroe, Better Up fellow coach, there are some ways you can sharpen your skills and improve how you self-manage. They are as follows. Keep your promises. Be a player, not a victim. Know who you are and who you aren't. First things first, meetings with yourself. Nurture yourself. Take breaks. Practice mindfulness and don't multitask. Keep your promises. There are two parts to keeping your promises. First, do what you said you would do. It creates trust with others and within yourself. Second, be careful what you say yes to. Your job is not to be a hero. It is to stay focused on your role and to work to your strengths. Know your boundaries, but apply compassion as you hold them. Be a player, not a victim. If you begin to feel things like, this isn't fair, or why didn't they meet the deadline, you are likely seeing yourself as a victim. How can you move from victim to player? A player works with intention rather than being controlled by external events. They can often find themselves engaged more productively by evoking a coaching stance. being creative to propose solutions, or respectfully challenging the status quo. Know who you are and who you aren't. Keep an inventory of your strengths in mind, and as you plan your work, assign yourself work that fits your strengths. The point is that you also know what you aren't good at, which means finding others who are. For example, I am aware that I'm strong in looking at the new requirements and building solutions to address them. I am poor at fixing things already in use, so I always have to look a troubleshooter around me. First things first. If you have a good plan, you know the critical items you have to get done. You also know that there will be many demands, requests for your time helping others meet their objectives. You need to stick out time on your calendar for your works first, while still allowing enough time to be supportive of others and to stay in tune with the organization. By doing this, you control which items of lesser priority get your time. Meetings with yourself. Make time for yourself to stay on plan. At a minimum, set time aside for a 1 hour weekly meeting with yourself where you take stock of progress, catalog problems, notice opportunities, and update your plans for next week, month, or quarter. Nurture yourself. You can't do your best if you aren't at your best. Know that you will be most effective if you eat well, focus on physical well being, and get at least 7 hours of sleep daily. The only person who can truly be responsible for our care is ourselves. Thriving as an individual starts with nurturing ourselves. Many of us carry ingrained beliefs that serving others is our calling, or self-sacrifice is noble, and thinking about ourselves is selfish. The fact is, we need to be at our best to do our best, and if we don't practice self-care, we begin to erode our capacity to contribute. How many of us have hit a tough stretch at work where we put in 80 hours a week for several weeks, only to find our clarity of thought and productivity declining? Take breaks. It is very easy to get caught up in work, and being tied to your desk is counterproductive. Taking breaks allows time to release stress and recharge. Get creative. Visit a colleague. Get some water. Go out for a walk in nature, or call your partner. Just get away from work for a few minutes several times a day. Practice mindfulness. Introduce the habit of mindfulness and meditation into your day. When we enter a state of meditation, it is just as helpful to our brains and bodies as sleep. Spending 5 to 10 minutes a couple of times each day can create new energy for us. And don't multitask. The idea of multitasking has somehow been given a badge of honor. The fact is that human minds don't work that way. We are wired to do one thing and then switch tasks. Switching tasks requires energy to refocus, so the more we do it, the more time and energy we waste. Focus your time, energy, and abilities on a single task at any given moment. Complete each task fully before moving on to another, so that you're managing your time and effort efficiently. I have just presented to you the key points about self-management skills at work that I wanted to share with you. As follows: the concept of self-management, key elements of self-management, initiative, organization, and accountability, and how to develop these skills, and tips to improve self-management skills. I hope you can glean some new insights and put them to use at work. I would like to conclude my presentation with a few thoughts. Well developed self management skills advance your initiative, organizational, and accountability skills crucial in the workplace. They will help you to perform your task efficiently, communicate effectively and confidently with colleagues, staff, school leaders, managers, and stakeholders, make right decisions, maintain a work life balance, and keep your body and mind healthy. Self management is a critical workplace skill that any of us can develop. Although it is difficult to step out of our comfort zone, mastering self management is vital. Stay conscious of your thoughts, desires, and feelings as you go through your day, and take note of those you need to work on. Consider in what ways you excel at self management and where you might improve. Self management is the difference between keeping your job and being replaced. Thank you for your participation.
Thank you very much. And that is the end of our video for topic number 4, for topic on building self-management skills at work. So if you have any questions, please unmute yourself to have a conversation with Dr. Anita or simply type them into the chat box. Thank you very much.
Okay, so we have just watched the video, and I guess at this point in time, you have so many things to share about your self-management, and perhaps also you have some questions. And I invite you to also join me, join me of answering some questions if you have some ideas like you may wanted to share with us. You are all welcome.
Yes, I can see that we have one question in the chat box from Lai Lai Y.
Okay, yeah, I see here. Lai why? And yeah, the question is, could you kindly mention me more about some examples of digital planner? Okay, digital, when I talk about digital planner, this will be your calendar. Kind of, you can make a calendar in the internet. So we have some like template of calendar, like a planner in online, and you can use them. This planner, I would say, digital planner is your activities. Like maybe you have a weekly activity, for example, in digital, you do it online. In terms, as I said, in terms of template, we have so many samples online on digital planner template. So I mentioned that because all of us now, I guess, are using it, like, or maybe some of us, because it will be easy. You don't need a printed copy. You don't need to have bringing with your notebook. If you go outside, you can look at your planner and you see what the things you're going to do, and what are the things you're going to do tomorrow or the next day or next month. You already have, I would say, a macro list of these activities that you plan to do within a week or within 2 weeks. It depends on your time span. But this is a planner that is found, in your digital files, I would say. I hope I have shared with you, Lai. You can always say something. I'm happy that you are here with us now.
Thank you.
Yeah. I am really glad that you are here. You have been with us also for
Yeah. Thank you.
during this session. I mean, in our online training.
Yes.
So we have here from II. What is measure of self-management skills for students? Maybe II. Hi. Maybe what you are referring here about measure is maybe indication whether our students have self-management. Am I correct, Lailai? I mean, I. Okay. If you ask me whether what is my measure or my indication that my students have self-management skills, one will be being able to come to class on time. Okay. And coming to class ready with their school materials, self-management, and being able to submit the assignment on time and ready to participate in the class, could be. And I would also be able to see if my students are organized. Are they organized with their work? Are they organized with their assignments? And do they have the initiatives to go further and to go extra effort, for example, self-management? And are they accountable of what they're doing? Do they own their responsibility or they point out others? It's not me, it's he, and pointing out the classmates or whoever person to blame for the mistake or something, though that student is part of that mistake. See, self-management. Students can control, can discipline themselves from being noisy to be, like noisy by doing unnecessary, irrelevant, things inside the class, to become polite and participative, and cooperative. I would say students have the self-management skills. Because when we have the self-management skills, we are disciplined. We can discipline our thoughts. We can discipline our actions. We can discipline our behavior, and whatever will that be, because we can manage ourselves. We know our limits. We know that it's not good. It's, and all. That's self-management. So we manage our actions, our attitudes, our thought, our words, what we say. We don't just say things that we like, right? We see our things that are relevant, that are polite, that, that's self-management. I cannot just shout in the class, though I feel like shouting. Self-management. Okay. So there are lots of indicators we know that our students are developing their self-management skills. And that is why if we see our students not behaving well and not responding to classes, not participating to classes, or not submitting assignments on time and other things that we observe our students are doing, then we check our students. We remind them. If they're not behaving well, we remind them to behave. Of course, there are lots of temptations out there when you look at the door outside, for example. But can you manage yourself? Can you behave well? Self-management. So, as I said earlier, there are different indicators that we can tell our students are having self-management skills or not. Okay, I hope I have shared with you my
my thoughts about your question. Okay, another one is, okay, welcome, Momo. So we have here from Dr. Kalyar Laing. I hope I have read your name correctly. Okay, self-management mean plan for daily activity. Also, I want to know to transfer digital plan. Yeah, I agree with you. Self-management would mean plan for daily activity, and even you plan also for the future activity ahead of time. That's self-management. You think ahead, you plan ahead. And we have here also, I want to know to transfer digital plan. To transfer digital plan. Okay, so I guess you have now your plan in printed copies, and you'd like to transfer it to digital plan. Now here you're going to just have like develop your plan online. You have a template, and of course you have your file for that, a file. So what is the name of that digital plan that you have? Is it you might say, okay, digital plan, that would be the heading, under that. Maybe you have a weekly digital plan, or maybe a quarterly, or depending now on that kind of plan that you have. But you first will have a file you can store online, and you need to name it. And it's easy to transfer your digital plan. You just have to copy it in your template digitally. It's online, digitally. If you already have it, then copy it digitally, and you can save it. You have your name, name your file. What is the name of that file, so that you can easily locate it. You can easily, grab it when you need. That's how I understand your question. Yeah. I hope I have shared my thoughts, Dr. Kailar. Kalyar. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. Welcome, Dr. Sabal. So we have here from Mo, Sabal, Myanmar. Organizational skill and positive attitude are very important in our work. Yeah, I agree. Thank you too. Okay. About the PowerPoint presentation, Ms. Chow already mentioned that it will be available after the session today. So no worries, you will have them all. Okay, the links for assignments on today's one. Okay, yes, already Ms. Chow mentioned that. Okay, did I miss something, Ms. Chow? Okay, here from Annabelle Navarro, my niece is, attending. Thank you so much, Auntie, for enlightening us more about critical thinking skills, and this topic really help us teachers. Thank you so much. Thank you for attending, and thanks for your co-teachers also for being with us today. Thank you. Mhm. So, mhm. I wonder if there are still questions that you would like to ask, or maybe insights, thoughts, or perhaps your experience in self-management skill. Yeah, you might want us to also be, I would say, enlightened, and perhaps we can use that,
in our own context. Sharing of thoughts, sharing of experiences really are very appreciated. So I would like to remind us all that we have to really a very important part of self-management skill is taking care of ourselves. Taking care of ourselves. Because we cannot give the best if ourselves are not in the best condition. And I hope that you enjoy our two topics today and you gleaned some thoughts, ideas, insights that would, help advance, your critical thinking and self-management skills.
That
And
I
you
have,
can use at work. Yeah,
that
thank you. Yes.
I have something to say or inquire.
Yeah, sure.
Sometimes we perform to the best we have or we can, but our best would be average for them or average for our boss or our head. How can we? We do our very best, but our best really is just average for them. How can you assess with
Yeah.
that?
I really understand with you. Truly
Uh,
understand. We did our best and we are doing our best, but
when
our
we-
best is not
still fail.
the best that our managers, our bosses up there have in mind. That's the question. But the point is that we work
Mhm.
because we love our work.
Mm.
We work with compassion. We work the best we could. This is our best in the meantime. But our best today may not be the best tomorrow. Our best tomorrow is another level,
Yeah.
So we are improving, we are growing because we are dynamic. We learn from today and we improve for tomorrow. Now, the point here is that for me personally, I do away from equating my best to my superiors. I do away from like telling myself that this is the best. This is not the best of my head. Honestly, I am telling myself I am doing my best with all the knowledge I have, with all the competencies I have at this point in time. I could not please my superior maybe, but God knows that I'm doing my best. And I know that I am growing in process. I know I am developing. And so that puts me in place. Because if I am always, like jumping, I am always, like trying to clutch to the expectations of my boss and my superior, then I turn my life a regret. I will not be happy of my accomplishment. I will not be happy of my achievement. But I am trying my best. I am doing to improve in process. That's how I handle. That is also self-management skill. To be flexible. There are always expectations. But our expectation and my boss expectation be different. I'm happy if my boss would tell me, "Congratulations, you have done your best." I mean, you did your good. You did a good job, something like that. I'm so happy, really. But if I won't receive it, I am still happy because I did not waste my time. That's the point. My conscience tells me that I did not waste my time.
Yes.
I did it because I love my work. I'm not working for my boss. I am working for my school, for my students. The boss is there to guide me and to check maybe and to facilitate and to help me put in place, and something like that. But after all, it's a mission, and I take it personally, and I'm accountable of that. See, here we have this accountability of the responsibility we are having, and that's for me. If you look at, like, refer to what I'm thinking about it, I know there are lots of frustrations if we try to meet the expectations all the time.
So
Yeah.
thank you. Correct.
Mhm. But I would say in process, we have also to listen to the boss, right? In process, we have to think how we can do it. If the boss is there and then willing to help us in process, then we would really appreciate that very much. I am not telling here that I am independent. No, I need a collaboration. I will collaborate with my superior, my other teachers to improve my way of doing the self-management. Very important of self-management is acknowledging my limitation, my weaknesses. That's why one of the tips I mentioned is that know who you are and know who you aren't. That's very important. We cannot work as independent, individual within the context of an organization. But what I am thinking here is that owning my responsibility, owning my limits, very important too. After I have done all, with collaboration, with consultation, more readings, and knowing, all this, and this is the best I could do at the moment. Okay, I hope I have shared my thoughts. Really, Dr. Bation.
I noticed, Mangot, based on our experience and observation, we noticed that there are some administrators or heads of the institution.
Okay, yes, true.
We always mention there is no such thing as discrimination, but in the
Yeah.
actual location,
Mhm.
we usually send
Mhm. True. Yeah, I
participants with
understand.
those who are really good or very good, but those who are only good will not be given a chance to attend the training. Not this training, but in the previous I
Mhm.
noticed there
Mhm.
are administrators and they just select the best. So what
Mhm.
happened? There was no improvement on the part of those good, only those very good, and then became excellent. I
True.
noticed.
Oh.
And
Yeah.
also, it's very difficult for that person or teacher to join much more in a certain research group. Because if you are
Mhm.
not knowledgeable about a certain research,
Mhm.
you are not welcome to join to their group because their
Mhm.
group really considered as knowledgeable in terms of research. So
Mhm.
how can a certain teacher will become very good in terms of research? In
Mhm.
fact, that teacher is not welcome to join with their group. I noticed that. So I
Mhm.
thank you for your stand and
Mhm. Mhm.
your advice also. Sige.
Okay. Yeah, I truly understand your thoughts and experience and observation, perhaps. Yeah, you're right. And that would really limit the teacher to go further when the teacher is not welcome, right? Uh-huh. Yes. Now, we would like to welcome Dr. Damapon. My beloved Dr. Tuaman. Okay, let's give the floor to Dr. Damapon. Miss Chow?
Yes, Dr. Tumapon, Teresita Tumapon, we're seeing that you're raising your hand. Please unmute yourself and sharing with us your experiences relating to this topic, please.
Yeah, I can be heard now, no?
Yes,
Okay.
yes,
Yeah,
doctor.
I said what Dr. Oblina said about initiative, organization, and so accountability is very much needed, especially during these online courses.
Mhm,
You've really got to have initiative, no?
mhm,
And sometimes when God gives you something that seems not unpleasant, like when I had bronchitis and I had no voice, but I had to go on with my classes. And I thought that from the modules and handouts that they have, we could formulate thought, thought questions. Thought, TSOUGST. Thought
mhm,
questions are questions where the students just cannot copy from the modules, but they have to apply the concepts that they have. So I had to write so many questions. If there were 22, if I could write 22, okay. If I could write 12, then two in one question, matching. And I found out, and Dr. Oblina knows this, the Filipino, when
mhm,
somebody is talking in a crowd, the Filipina is mahiya. She tries to give the best.
mhm,
So, because their assignment during the virtual session is to put into a bullet style PowerPoint the response to the question, I found out that they have improved in what they try to do because they try their best.
mhm,
So, what I'm saying back to the theme of Dr. Oblina, you've got to be organized.
mhm,
You've got to have initiative. Well, nobody told me about that, but it just came as an inspiration because I had no voice. So what would I do during the virtual session? It's 4 hours. So I thought that they would be the one talking instead.
mhm, mhm,
And it proved to be a very good one because they like it.
mhm,
They were doctoral students. So uh, I am trying to what do you call to underline those three that Dr. Oblina said. Initiative. You've got to initiative. You've got to to do something without being told, and maybe it
mhm,
could even be an inspiration from God
mhm,
that I lost my voice. No. So
mhm,
now
mhm,
that is the usual method I'm using now, and they seem to like it. They look forward. The only thing, the Filipinos, when you are like a mother to them, they are also like children. One would tell me, Mom, could you please see if my PowerPoint is already okay? So I look at it. Then I give it back. Mom, I have corrected it. Could you please see? Oh my God. Now I have more than 1,000 emails. But the point there is that they take pains, although they are busy. They are busy. 7 of them are nurses who are busy with vaccination. So that is the joy that we have from this online course. In fact, I put in my column what are the characteristics of an online syllabus and so on. I was just sharing people what I learned in these 2 years. So I would repeat Dr. Oblina's emphasis on initiative, organization, and of course, we are accountable. I learned so many lessons from that I could jive with what she was saying. Yeah, it is part really of our experience on online courses. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Tumapon, for your thoughts and for your ideas. Really, we are most blessed to have you today.
Oh, I always saw there were several from Liceo that are here. I saw their names.
Okay. Thank you, Liceo de Cagayan University, for supporting the program and for being with us.
Mhm.
Yes, I can also see in the chat box the questions from Mo Sabai.
Uh-huh. From Moy Sabal. Okay, yes, we have it here. Management skill is related to critical thinking. Moreover, related to previous knowledge of the subjects. Your suggestion? Yeah, I agree with you, Moy Sabal, that self-management skill is related to critical thinking skills. Yes, because we need to really think. We need to really explore, different perspectives, when we self-manage. Like, for example, as mentioned by Dr. Tumapon, we in our initiative, organization, accountability, we need critical thinking to do our role, to be able to manage a situation or context or a condition where we are in. So, related to previous knowledge of the subjects. Yes. Yeah, self-management skills too are related to our previous experience, knowledge, background information we have. Like, for example, when we do our planning, like make a to-do list, for example, perhaps we are forced or moved to make it because of our past experiences. Maybe the urge to make a to-do list is founded on series of experiences in the past, perhaps that didn't, that were not good and were not helping us to be able to be successful in a particular context or at work, for example. So I definitely agree with you that in self-management skills, we need previous knowledge, as well as because of that previous knowledge and because of maybe the knowledge come from experience or observation, or from reading. And then with that, then we can plan ahead. Not only tomorrow, perhaps, but maybe a week or a month ahead.
Yes.
But this planning is, I would say, flexible because we cannot hold the future. But we just have in mind that this is it that I'm going to do. But I am open to circumstance, whatever. This can be adjusted.
Yes.
Okay?
Okay. Yes. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank
Okay.
you. Mhm.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Mhm. Mhm. Miss Chow, do we have more? I saw someone raising his or her hand a while ago. I don't know.
Yeah, they lowered their hands.
Feel free if you want to say something.
I believe that we have all the questions answered.
Thank you so much. Now, before we end the session today, I'd like really to acknowledge our participants today we have from Cambodia, our participants from Myanmar, our participants from Philippines, and our participants from Vietnam. So there are 4 countries participating in today's session. Thank you so much for your time. I know you are busy out there. You have your own schedules and appointments and perhaps priorities, but you come in and join us. And that is really very, very wonderful and great for us. We are honored to have you today. And we are honored to have Dr. Tumapon today. Thank you, Doc, for joining us. And all the Lucio community and other schools who are with us, the Baroy, and I cannot name all, but really our deepest appreciation for your presence and attendance and participation today.
Yes,
And
thank you so much.
yeah, we look forward to meeting you again in February, and that will be our last session for this modular online training series.
Yes, so thank you very much, Dr. Anita, for sharing your expertise and experiences on our two discussed topics today. And thank you to all our participants for very fruitful and active participation in our training section. So before we close our section today, I would like to remind you some important notes. So first, please complete the assignments on the two Google Forms before Monday, January 31st. And your assignment will be subjected to evaluation before we issue you the certificate to your email. So in the chat box, you can see that we have sent you the assignment link as well as the materials link, the PowerPoint that we use in the training session so that you can archive them and use them to your own goods. Yes. And second, your name on the assignment will be the one that used in your certificate of completion. So please make sure to input it correctly. Finally, we have shared on the in the chat box on the links for assignments and today PPTs. So kindly download them and save them to yourself. We will send the links again in an email in the next week. Also, we have also sent the attendance link into the chat box. So please fill in your email into that link. So thank you very much. And we appreciate your participation today. Kindly share this free program with your colleagues and network so that it can make greater impact to the regional education. We're looking forward to meeting you again, and goodbye for now. Thank you very much.
Okay, goodbye for now. Thank you.
Thank you, Doc.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dada.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Laba.